As the U.S.-China competition intensifies, Taiwan is also working along U.S. allies in the region to decouple its economic reliance on China and realign its supply chains. Today, we will explore how Taiwan is working to achieve that through its new Southbound Policy, a key focus of the Tsai Ing-wen administration in expanding in South and Southeast Asian markets, and how other major players, such as India, are also moving to fill in a gap. Hi, and welcome to Taiwan Talks, covering the latest global news and analysis from a Taiwan perspective. I'm Betty Chen.
I'm Rath Wang. Joining us in the studio is Deng, Taiwan Minister without portfolio, in charge of international trade policy coordination, the government agency responsible for international trade negotiations, who also previously served as the Minister of Economic Affairs, and Sana Hashmi, Postdoctoral Fellow at the Taiwan-Asia Exchange Foundation, a policy think tank focusing on Taiwan's cooperation with Southeast and South Asia. Sana is a native of India. A warm welcome to Minister Deng and Sana on the show today. I also spoke earlier to the Thai representative to Taiwan, Twekiat Janprajak, Executive Director of the Thailand Trade and Economic Office in Taipei, on how Taiwan became the top investor in his country as part of the new Southbound Policy's continued efforts. As the U.S. leads friendshoring efforts to re-globalize through building alternative supply chains out of China, Taiwan has also seen many of its companies move out of China, some moving back home and others moving to other parts of Asia. My first question goes to you, Minister. With this trend and with your visits to the U.S. and talks with the U.S. trade representative, how do you see Taiwan working with the U.S. to move its supply chains and rebuilding new supply chains out of China?
Yes, thank you very much, Rath. The relation and the dialogue channel between U.S. and Taiwan since President Tsai assumed her office has been significantly improved. And now our communication with U.S. agencies, for instance, with USTR, with Commerce, with the National Security Council, are very open. We've been talking to U.S. discussing the current international situation. We understand this is a very rapidly changing international situation. And the U.S. look at Asia as a very important part of their strategic planning. Taiwan, they identify Taiwan, that the importance and of the Taiwan geographically and the importance of the Taiwan's economy. They identify, of course, under this environment. That's why myself and Ambassador Deng of USTR, we announced that to initiate a 21st century trade initiative between U.S. and Taiwan. So we are now working. This work is still going on. We are working to negotiate a trade agreement between us. This is just one of the examples that now currently is undergoing between U.S. and Taiwan. As to the supply chain, U.S. Since President Biden assumed his office, they very quickly identify several sectors. Computer chip is one of the sectors that they found most of the chips they need were produced in abroad. So one of the goals they want to achieve is to have their chip industry in the United States rebuilt. And the very possible, very natural partner is with Taiwan.
As we've seen with the Arizona plant of TSMC.
That's right. That's the result of their work. On the government level, we help the business to understand U.S. investment environment, I brought them to Select USA program. And of course, it is up to the private sector. In this case, it's TSMC, where they discuss that with with the U.S. government regarding incentives, subsidies, government regulations, and the talent training. So they decide to build up a 40 billion, yeah, that's right, 40 billion US dollar investment project there, which is large, probably one of the largest investment projects in the United States.
And that was facilitated partly from the Select USA program.
I will say Select USA plays some role. I don't know how big that role is, but everything helps. Yeah, everything helps.
Do you also see how the U.S. is encouraging Taiwan to work with Southeast Asia and countries in the new Southbound as well, as part of these talks?
Yes. This Asia is a very important area strategically for United States. They know Taiwan has its advantages in the Southeast Asia, so they do encourage Taiwan to work with our Southeast Asia neighbors.
And does that include also building the supply chain as it moves out of these companies in China?
True. Now, on the supply chain, what we see in the past 2 years is a very clear example that if you do not have a reliable, secured supply chain, the damage to your society, to your nation is very, very devastating. See the disruption of the supply chain. You see China just do whatever they want. They stop export of certain very critical materials. They stop importing of certain very important products to us. So to build up a supply chain which is reliable, which is secured, is an important part of the work. They find Taiwan can fit this category as a reliable and secured. So we had many discussions in past 2 years on how to build up a supply chain. Computer chip is one of the products. Other products, medical supplies, electronic vehicles are also applied to this category.
Definitely, we would like to know more about other important products during the process of our promotion for the new Southbound policy. So Sana, I would like to direct a question to you. Speaking of the safe and reliable supply chain, we know that India is known for the IT talent, the competitive wages, and growing presence in the global supply chain. And also, in terms of the U.S. policy for the friendshoring trends, we know that India is trying to hit the $400 billion in exports by 2025. So how is India trying to leverage the opportunity probably to replace China to become the world's factory? How do you see that?
Definitely, India is an important destination when we talk about establishing an alternative supply chain hub. But I think before that, we have to look why this is all happening. And I feel there are definitely important reasons, factors that have led to these developments. The first is, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic, disruption in the supply chain, as Minister rightly pointed out, and China's COVID-19 policy. And apart from that, China's economic coercion, and Taiwan is such a victim to that. And military escalation in the Taiwan Strait and the South China Sea, and now we are also seeing at the line of actual control. So these are the factors that have led countries to move away from China, to perhaps manage and reduce their risk, and to get their investment out of China and to kind of divert it from other countries. And I think Taiwan is one country that is trying to do that. And this is one of the reasons why we see the new Southbound policy, and why I feel that this is one of the successes of the President Tsai Ing-wen administration, the new Southbound policy. So I feel that India is one of the key countries, not just for Taiwan, but a lot of other countries as well. And I definitely see a lot of potential. India, because of its own problems with China, it's trying to decouple from China. But it's easier said than done. It's not as easy as we talk about it and as we say it. And Taiwan is also trying to pull its investment out of China. So I feel that India and Taiwan are two countries that is match made in heaven. And Taiwan's hardware capabilities, India's software capabilities. So these two countries have a lot there is a lot of complementarities. There's a lot that these countries could cooperate. So definitely India is really looking at Taiwan to play an important part for it to become an important alternative supply chain hub. So I feel there's a lot of potential there.
I really like the expression match made in heaven, right? So it shows the complementarity between Taiwan and India. But in terms of the semiconductor or the chip industry, Taiwan would like to become the world's foundry. So how can India deepen its cooperation with Taiwan or the US or other allies to further promote the technical cooperation?
I think Taiwan is already a leading country when it comes to semiconductor production, and this is one of the reasons why Taiwan is so much important for a lot of countries in the world. So definitely India is really looking to deepen cooperation with Taiwan in the field of semiconductor. When we talk about India, Taiwan and like-minded countries cooperation in the technological field, what India is trying to do is not to establish an anti-China coalition or a technological cooperation coalition. So what we are seeing is that India is trying to have its own kind of bilateral cooperation with the US and with Taiwan. So I feel that of course China is at the core of Indo-Pacific technological cooperation. But I feel that despite that, what India is trying to do is to have a unique kind of bilateral relationship with Taiwan. And Foxconn has already established a joint venture with India's Vedanta. So I think this is really going to be a game changer with respect to India-Taiwan cooperation in the semiconductor industry. But of course, what India wants is TSMC. I think there's no doubt about that, but TSMC is already too busy, its hands is already full. But I think that would really be a game changer for India-Taiwan relationship. And I always say when we talk about India-Taiwan relationship, when we talk about raising the stakes in the relationship, we have to raise the economic stakes. There's no other way. And I feel that India is really keen on establishing and strengthening economic cooperation with Taiwan.
That's a very good point, and definitely we will come back to that later. We just discussed how Taiwan working to lessen its economic reliance on China through leveraging US-led supply chain realignment to expand in new Southbound countries, including India and Southeast Asia. Coming up next, we will hear from the Thai representative to Taiwan as he spoke to Rath in an exclusive interview on how Taiwan is now his country's top investor as Taiwan continues to expand into the region under its new Southbound policy.
Welcome back to the show. Let's now hear from Thai representative to Taiwan, Twekiat Janprajak, the executive director of the Thailand Trade and Economic Office based in Taipei. He spoke to me earlier on how Taiwan became his country's top investor and the industries both countries are working together to develop. Let's take a look.
So far, there are about 5,000 Taiwan companies in Thailand, invest in Thailand. And there are about 200,000 of Taiwanese residing or living with their business and their family in Thailand. And so far, we have like Taiwan International School in Bangkok, because they have a big community of Taiwan in Thailand. And they are going to open one more in Pattaya province.
What key areas do you feel are potential industries where Taiwan and Thailand can cooperate on? As you talked about, the large investments from Taiwanese companies going to Thailand and the huge population there.
In the past, Taiwanese company, they invest in many fields, like for electronic, even food processing, or even for energy. But latest one is the company Honhai company or Foxconn. They just make a joint venture with the Thai local company, petroleum company, to invest for the EV car industry in the EC area in Thailand. This is the latest one. And apart from that, we have the petroleum company in Thailand. They just make a joint venture with the Danish company to invest in offshore wind farm in Taiwan. Yeah, this is a very close cooperation between between our two sides.
Hong Hai actually made Taiwan become the #1 foreign investor in
Yes.
Thailand.
Yes.
Do you feel there will be more IT companies coming in, as you mentioned, green energy and Hong Hai?
Because Hon Hai or Foxconn is a very big company, like the EV car, there will be many of supply chain company from Taiwan will go to invest in Thailand because this is a part of their chain for the investment. It is a very good opportunity, not only for big company, maybe for smart or SME company from Taiwan to go to invest in Thailand.
Bring it back to the Thai side. Do you feel there's also a lot of potential from Thailand to work with Taiwan on, say, there's a large contribution from Thai labor in terms of developing Taiwan's,
Yes.
and not just that, there are also Thai companies that are also working, as you see CP here in Taiwan.
We have a Thai worker working in Taiwan, about maybe 70,000. This is the biggest Thai worker working in abroad. This is the big labor market of Thailand in Taiwan compared to other countries. Yes. This is our main contribute to Taiwan economy too, because we have a lot of Thai worker here. And apart from that, so far we have make cooperation between the startup or SME company between Thailand and Taiwan. Now we have discussed with the ideal organization of Taiwan, which was like startup company, very active. We are going to make like a forum or exchange of startup company between two sides to push forward, because we consider that the small or medium or startup is what the backbone of our economy. The same in Taiwan. The SME very important for your economy. Maybe they account for 80% of your economy, right?
Startups are really interesting. So which kind of startups do you see? Are they more like on the IT side or all industries?
Not only IT side, maybe they can like exchange in terms of green product, recycle product, or other field like fashion, or for maybe innovative in technology, something. Even in terms of medical equipment, because Thailand was a hub of healthcare treatment, because we have many foreigners coming to Thailand for their medical treatment, and we need a lot and to import a lot of medical equipment. Taiwan is the main supply chain for our medical healthcare too. Yeah.
You just heard Thailand's representative to Taiwan talk about how electronic vehicles, EV, with Hong Hai's new plant has made Taiwan Thailand's top investor. Let's now discuss the specifics of the new Southbound Policy and how the government is helping businesses to expand southward. So I would like to direct my question to you, Minister. We understand that under the new Southbound Policy, there are several important areas, including digital technology, healthcare, and education. And also the representative from Thailand to Taiwan also mentioned that Taiwan has become Thailand's top investor in medical equipment. So could you please share with us how the government is trying to enhance the digital technology and healthcare industry in terms of our cooperation with the new Southbound countries?
Yes, I think one of the most important factor that we can do is to increase the channel of the communication, the meetings, to attend each other's trade event, to let those people in that area to know each other, to discuss with each other. Each market is different from the other one. They need to discuss further. They need to become a friend. They need to become a business partner. So that's what the Thai representative mentioned, and that's what we've been doing with them as well. We established this annual industrial forum dialogues. We bring hundreds of researchers, business owners, academic community professors to talk to them.
To Taiwan.
To take turn. 1 year is, for
Alternately,
instance, in
right?
Bangkok. The other year will be in Taipei. Then that also applied to other Philippines, to Malaysia.
All over Asia.
Or,
India as well, of course.
India, all over Asia, Southeast Asia, and India. That's one thing. Second is to encourage the students to study to each other's school. We now have about 60,000 students from Southeast Asia countries to study in Taiwan. There are several advantages. They get internship opportunities. They get on-hands training. Taiwan has many factories, and Taiwan is small, so they can, while they are studying, they can also work in the factories. So they can experience to run business, to know their trade, to know people, and then of course they also learn their knowledge in the school. I do see that digital healthcare in every country, you go to every country, people will tell you healthcare is the sector that they need to spend money.
Especially after COVID, right?
After COVID, after aging,
Right.
each society is facing this aging, and while people are increasing their income, they need to have a better care of their health. So healthcare is one area where you will see many business opportunities. On the education, we hope that through the scholarship, through these internship opportunities, through relaxation of our immigration regulations, we can encourage more young people come to study in Taiwan. Give them an option. They can choose either to stay or going back to their countries to work for their industries. This will make these two societies can have very strong foundation to further develop their relations. So I think we are on the right path. Now, after COVID, we can expand its size.
With actual travel.
Yes.
Because of the travel, yes.
Face-to-face meetings.
Exactly.
I wanted to go back to the elephant in the room, Sana. You talked earlier about how China has been aggressive in the region and how there's been backlash in India, and it seems that the Indian public is also wary of that. But in terms of specific government policies, how do you see the Indian government working with the Taiwanese government to expand on that?
I think specifically since the last year, of course, since the onset of the pandemic, there's a lot of enthusiasm about Taiwan in India. And you rightly mentioned about the civil society bonhomie towards Taiwan. That wasn't really there before. There was a lot of kind of confusion and ignorance about Taiwan in India. But I think how Taiwan responded to the pandemic and how impeccably the job was done in Taiwan, that really generated a lot of awareness about Taiwan in India. But if we just talk about the government and government policies towards Taiwan, I see a lot of enthusiasm. I see a lot of friendly policies towards Taiwan. And recently we had a visit from Deputy Economic Minister from Taiwan to India, and we saw that a red carpet was actually rolled out for him. Earlier, there was a lot of cautious behavior from India's side to Taiwan.
And that's actually unprecedented, right? The red carpet has never happened.
And then, of course, this is mandate of the relationship to strengthen economic cooperation. It very much comes under the mandate of India-Taiwan relationship. But I feel that if you look at the minister's visit now, and I feel that Minister Tsang would also agree with me, I felt that this was kind of the kind of reception he got. It was unprecedented. It was very different from how the earlier visits used to be. So I believe that Indian office here, India-Taipei Association, and then Indian officials, both state and central government officials, they have been very proactive with respect to the economic cooperation with Taiwan. And it's just not semiconductor. There's a lot more that's happening between India and Taiwan. And Taiwan has substantial presence in India. There are more than 100 Taiwanese companies that exist in India that employs more than 65,000 people in India. But then if we look at Taiwanese investment in India, that's actually not even 1% of Taiwanese outbound investment. So there's a lot of potential, untapped potential that's there between India and Taiwan. So of course we talk about India-Taiwan relationship, we get happy about it, but there is a lot of work that needs to be done. And I feel that government is different from the businesses. So government is really trying hard for the businesses to go to India, to go to new Southbound Policy countries. But of course, it's a long way to go. There are a lot of policies that have been taken, and I feel that Taiwan is one of the target countries for India from India's side. We talk about building semiconductor ecosystem that India has promised to invest $10 billion US. Then you have PLI, that production linked investment scheme. So that's primarily to boost domestic manufacturing. And then also India is trying to establish itself as EV supply chain hub. So Taiwan could really play an important role, and we have already heard the news that Gogoro is establishing a joint venture with an Indian company called Hero. So I see a lot of potential, but as I said, there's a lot more work that needs to be done specifically with respect to economic cooperation.
Definitely, we need to boost our efforts to see these policies to borne fruit. So I would like to direct my question back to Minister. We understand that you talk about the important areas of cooperation, whether in trade or economic cooperation or talent exchange. You mentioned there are 60,000 students from ASEAN now studying in Taiwan, and also resource sharing and regional connectivity. Could you please tell us what are the concrete, results or benefit that we can see from the new Southbound policies? And among the 14 new Southbound countries, which countries do we already have closer cooperation, and in which countries should we boost more efforts?
Okay. Before I comment on your question, I'll echo Sana's point. India is very, very important country in this world, the largest population. The economic growth in past several years has been over 7% consecutively. This is an amazing achievement as an economic official. I rarely see a country can achieve that kind of growth.
And a democracy at the same time.
And democracy. Best education. The software engineers from India is the best. Speak English. Very friendly people. So we talk to our business leaders, say where you go next. Most will tell you India or United States. Most. So you can see that those large electronic companies from Taiwan, now they all have operation, or they are building an operation in India. Now, Sana is right. The relation between two countries has been much, much better now. I met with Minister Goya many times, several times. And India is the first country to sign investment agreement with Taiwan. Very first one. So they identify very clearly they want Taiwan's investors.
Do you expect a trade agreement coming out anytime soon, Minister?
Probably we may have to build up more presence in India. I can tell you, many countries want to do trade agreement with India now. India, in recent years, adopted the policy of opening up. In the past, they didn't do that much. So now UK is doing trade negotiation with India. Australia is doing, European EU is doing trade agreement with, their hands are full. So Taiwan can be patient for a while. Let's build up our presence first.
It takes time, right?
It takes time. As to Betty's question on where we can improve on this Southeast Asia, if we don't really affected by this pandemic, let's say our Southbound policy is a very successful strategy for Taiwan. several reasons. One, we are the first one in the world to have this strategy. After we announced it, Korea has their Southbound Policy. U.S. Indo-Pacific. India has their Indo-Pacific. Now, Canada, all similar. They want to establish better presence, better relations with Southeast Asia countries. Taiwan is the first. So we started early. That's why we see the investment, the trade is increasing so rapidly. Our investment in Southeast Asia is not only computer chips. It's very well diversified from basic consumer need products, textile, plastic, to the basic industry, steel. We have the largest steel companies in Vietnam, which really help them to provide them a very important sector of the materials. We have very strong electronic industries in Southeast Asia. As to countries, which countries, again, each country has their own advantage. So in Vietnam, mainly for export-oriented industries. Thailand, for automobile. Thailand already has a very strong automobile industry, probably third or fourth of the world. Now combined with Taiwan's electronic ICT industries, combine these two together can make their electronic EV industry very strong. So it depends. As to Philippines, it's more for the domestic market. Their population is also very large. They have 100 million.
Wow.
So there's actually no country that you just focus on, or in terms of where, there's a huge focus. So all of them are equally important, is what you're trying to say, Minister.
They have characteristics. They have their specific advantage. So we work with them to find out the best for us and for them. So I see great potential. It is important. This is our neighbors. They're our neighbors. When they have need, we are the first one to be there. We have Tzu Ji. Well, no matter where has any natural disaster, Tzu Ji is always the first among all this world before any countries can reach them.
For humanitarian aid, medical supplies, and all that.
Taiwan is always the first.
Taiwan can help, right?
Always the first. With that many student bases, with that many investment, job opportunities we help them to create. Taiwan is different from China. Taiwan is going there to help. While we are helping them, we are helping Taiwan to earn friendship. We need friends. China is going there to promote their products, to ship their oversupplied materials. We are different. So we say Southbound Policy is for develop people-to-people relation, not government-imposed things to them. It's people, we want friends like Sana. We want everyone to be our friends. I think we achieved that in past 6 years. There are more to do. Already lay very good foundation.
Exactly. We need to build a solid foundation. So start with people-to-people interaction, be a responsible stakeholder in the international community. That's how we win our friendship and respect, right?
Yes.
So we just discussed how Taiwan's Southbound Policy is steering the country away from over-dependence on China, and how the country is forging new relationships with countries in South and Southeast Asia. Coming up, we will be discussing more about trade with China and how Taiwan and other countries are fighting a way around it.
In this episode of Taiwan Talks, John Deng, Taiwan Minister without portfolio in charge of international trade policy coordination, the government agency responsible for international trade negotiations, and Sana Hashmi, Postdoctoral Fellow at the Taiwan-Asia Exchange Foundation, a policy think tank focusing on Taiwan's cooperation with Southeast and South Asia, discussed the government's new Southbound Policy and how the country is working to reduce reliance on China, diversifying its trade portfolio. Minister, going back to one of President Tsai's key campaign promises, as she mentioned, reducing reliance on China, and you talked about the success of the Southbound Policy and how New Southbound has actually brought in all these different countries to have better ties with Taiwan. But if you look at the numbers, there seems to be increased trade with China, with exports now at 71%, and imports grew to 87% between these 6 years. How is Taiwan working to reduce that and diversify in terms of the numbers out of China?
Yes, very good. This is a very important policy to Taiwan. If we see the number, in 2020, our export percentage to China is about 40%, 40 to 42% of Taiwan's total export. So our 40 to 42% of our total export went to China. This is a very large percentage. Now, we see the recent number is about 38% now. So there are some improvements here. Let me go back to the history. In past 20 years, our investment the investment relation between Taiwan and China is always one way from Taiwan to China.
Without being able to take out the funds out of China?
No. It's always from Taiwan to China. And then they make the profit, reinvest in China. So the number is getting bigger and bigger. No one really knows how large. Some people estimate might be 500 billion US dollars. This leads to two consequences. One, that our trade our export becomes so large to China because investment there, they come back to Taiwan to buy their components. Second, they then have the leverage to exert their leverage on Taiwan's decision through that very large investment. If we see the number, we'll see very large percentage are moving out of China, or they are thinking to move out of China. Several reasons. One, business environment is deteriorating every day. In other words, they steal your intellectual property rights. They impose unfair trade practice. Government will come in with very unpredictable measures.
Such as zero COVID and all these.
That's right. I think we have many examples. This is a very unpredictable government.
And are they moving to countries like Sana mentioned, to India and Southeast Asia, or are they moving? What focus countries are they looking at?
We know most of them, if they can, they will move back to Taiwan. This is the place where they are familiar with. They are familiar with the people, familiar with the government regulations, but we cannot accommodate all of them. Taiwan is a very small place.
So outside of Taiwan, is there a preferred country? Minister, have you seen the trend in terms of where?
In past, say 5 years, it is Southeast Asia, Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, Philippines. Now we see more talking about India, United States. So it is a very diversified. We are very happy to see this trend. First, we cannot accommodate all of them. Our electricity is not enough for all of them. Water is not enough. Land is not enough. Our workforce cannot support. They need what they need. So go to Southeast Asia, go to India, important market, getting more and more consumer capabilities. And go to United States, that's where the market is. So it is very good, but all in all, it demonstrates we are living out of China. That's I think we have to reduce our reliance on China. And I think we are doing that.
Exactly. So we can see that now Taiwan has increased its investment in India by a very large percentage, moving away from China. So have you seen any change in the India's government policy towards Taiwan because of the rising investment? And also, how are they adjusting the balancing across the cross-strait relations? Sana, please.
I would like to echo Minister Tang's point about the bilateral investment treaty and how the investment from Taiwan to India has increased. Over the years, we have seen the investment has remained low despite efforts, and so is trade. But since the signing of bilateral investment treaty, and that's the upgraded level of BIT, and India has just signed BIT with two countries, one is Myanmar, and we have, Myanmar is now going through crisis since February 2021. So, and Myanmar was a very important economy at that point of time. But now Taiwan remains the only country that has BIT, updated BIT with India. And since then, what we have seen that the investment figure from Taiwan has doubled from Taiwan to India. So, of course, there has been results that we are seeing. As I said, that there are still miles to go when we really get happy about the investment figures, the trade figures, but I feel that the relationship, specifically the economic cooperation, is moving in the right direction. So I'm very satisfied and optimistic about, as a scholar, as a layman, and as a proponent of India-Taiwan relationship, I am really satisfied with the policies, and I feel that New Southbound Policy, and if you look at it, I feel since the start of the New Southbound Policy, the exchanges have kind of doubled between India and Taiwan. So I would also credit the success of New Southbound Policy for the success of India-Taiwan relationship. As Minister also pointed out that we can't really judge the New Southbound Policy during the COVID time. There was hardly any interaction. Now the in-person interaction have started beginning now. And now if you look at it, now Taiwan has just opened up 2 months back, but even before that, even state government delegation from India, from Southeast Asian countries, they were coming and they were under quarantine, but they did it because they really want to get benefits out of Taiwan. So we have seen the exchanges from with the engagement with Taiwan has really increased. So I would really credit the New Southbound Policy. At least now there is a framework that exists. I'm not saying that there was never interaction between Southeast Asia, South Asia and Taiwan, but I feel now there is this framework that exists, and now at least from Taiwan's perspective, and even countries, the host countries, they know that there is this platform, there is this framework that exists, and the momentum will be sustained. So I strongly believe that there needs to be a policy framework for countries to cooperate, and there needs to be areas of cooperation. I would give you an example of India and also Taiwan. Taiwan had Go South policy, and I would say that what Taiwan has done with New Southbound Policy is to take the success of Go South policy and is kind of applying to the South Asian countries as well. I won't say that Go South policy and New Southbound Policy are similar, they are very different in nature, but I would say that the New Southbound Policy is specifically to look at countries such as India, Australia and New Zealand, and even Australia was missing from action when we talk about Taiwan's perspective. But now look at Freedom Wine, and we recently had academic delegation from IIA from Australia to Taiwan. So it's just not about economic cooperation, it's also about academic exchanges that we see between Taiwan and the New Southbound Policy countries. I'm from India, And I work for a think tank called Taiwan-Asia Exchange Foundation that was primarily established to foster exchanges between the new Southbound Policy countries and Taiwan. Very first time we have an agreement with an Indian think tank, the Supreme think tank, and we have this agreement is for 3 years, and we are going to have dialogue annually. And the first dialogue took place in Taiwan just 2 months back alongside the Yushan Forum. And the success of, we are very satisfied with the success of the dialogue. So I believe this is primarily because of the new Southbound Policy. So we really need to have more and more exchanges between Taiwan and the new Southbound Policy countries. And I believe that's just not because of China, but that's also because it's important for countries to look at Taiwan for what it is. I think it's high time that we look at Taiwan for what it is and we go beyond the China factor. And I think if I may also talk about my think tank, again, this is what we are trying to do. If you look at our publications, we are trying to look at Taiwan for what it is, Taiwan's external engagement for what it is. And I think this is one of the reasons, specifically if I may talk about India. India, of course, there are issues between India and China, but I won't really say that India is looking at Taiwan because we have issues with China. We are looking at Taiwan because first there's a realization that India cannot really just pay heed to China's sensitivities and keep ignoring Taiwan. There is mutual benefit to engage Taiwan, and I think this realization is very dominant within the Indian leadership, within the Indian strategic community. If you look at all the publications that are coming out on Taiwan from India, at least 95% of the publications call for more engagement with Taiwan. So this is something that we didn't see before, and I believe that the new Southbound Policy and Taiwan's emphasis on the engagement with India, look at President Tsai Ing-wen's tweet on India in 2020 and 2021. So I think that really got a lot of attention from India. So I feel that, of course, match made in heaven, but there is definitely true friendship between the people of India and Taiwan.
It's heartwarming to see these interactions improve and more cooperation between India and Taiwan. But both countries are also focused on the electronics industry and chips. Do you see with more cooperation, there's also more competition in terms of taking that position, or do you see it complementary?
I don't see competition. What I see is just cooperation, and I see a friendship that's only going to grow. So I don't really, and I feel that what India and Taiwan are trying to do is to benefit from each other's complementarities. So I don't really see both the countries competing each other, in at least in the AV sector. And I already mentioned about the JV that's going to take place between Gogoro and Hero. So that's just one of the examples of joint ventures. So, but we are going to see more of that.
So a quick follow-up question for either one of you. If Taiwanese companies would like to be brave enough to really tap into the markets in its new southbound countries, any advice as to where to start? What can they do? What's the first step?
I think I'll first let Minister come to answer that question.
I think each country is different from the other. We have to understand all those countries'